that probably is my prayer for my life. To be a song of truth of the one source who was the song. Loving to learn. So the caveat at the beginning, I need to tell you, this is really not about your feelings about learning. It's all about meeting the conditions of true learning. See, we're only open to learn if we're loving. We've said it a bunch of times, a lot of different ways, but there really is only love, and anything that isn't love is an expression of fear. And love is open, and fear is closed. See, if you're not loving, try it out. If you're not loving, you're busy making yourself right, or believing that you already know, thank you very much, and you're not open to seeing things differently. You know, I talked a couple of weeks ago about this personality thing that we develop and all of that, but our personalities are totally created to handle our fears. That's it. We actually design our lives and assign this ego personality to protect this life that we've designed so that we can go through this world without pushing too many of our sacred buttons. That's the whole focus. Let's do this, just make it easy. We'll talk about it, but not that. See, we devote our whole lives to having things be the way we want them to be. Which means inherently that we're not okay with things being the way they actually are. Now, I'm not suggesting that we say, la-di-da, everything's fine just the way it is. But what I'm saying is that we need to at least be at peace enough and open enough and willing enough, meaning not shut down, so that we can choose again. And choose again and choose again if we need to. I believe that the entire source of all of our suffering, in all of its multiple forms, is wanting things to be other than the way they are. You guys wouldn't do this, but just kind of imagine that maybe you were asking somebody for directions to go somewhere, only you didn't tell them where you were. I'm on my way. Oh, yeah, I'm close. I'm going. Yeah, I remember you mentioned the gas station. Sure, what are the directions for the gas station? How do I get to the gas station? We do that for a variety of reasons. We pretend to be where we aren't, and then try to get directions from there to where we want to go. I'm Dr. Phil, right? How's that working for you? You know, and even if it does manage to work out, might there have been an easier way? See, when we're afraid, we're the victim. Flip it around, by the way. Anytime you feel victimized at the effect of anything, that means you're afraid. When we're in love, we're the creator. We're the chooser. When we're in fear, we're busy basically affirming, reinforcing, explaining, justifying all of our limitations. I can't because of this and because of that, and if only that and only that. When we're in love, we just say, whoops, didn't work, choose again. Fear is interesting. Fear chooses, always gives you a choice of finite possibilities. It's either this or this. And if you're really, really expansive, it's this or that. But in fear, all of those possibilities are things that you have already imagined, you've already visualized, you've already assigned probabilities to. Love, on the other hand, is open to the perfect response, which is usually the one that we never, ever thought about. I was given an interesting question to ask you. Are you a weather vane or a rainbird sprinkler? Ask yourself sometime in the middle of the night. You know how rainbird sprinklers work? Everybody ever have them in your yard? You know, they got these little settings on there, and that setting on there tells you exactly where you want the rainbird to spray. And it goes, okay? That's our life for most of us. I'm willing to shine my light within this specific frame right here. I'm willing to accept things that fall within this viewpoint right here. But beyond that, reset. Reset. The weather vane, guess what? It moves wherever the wind blows it. And it always tells you exactly where the wind is blowing. The brain. Yes, the brain. You might not be aware of this, but the primary function of the brain is as a filtering mechanism. I know. Think about that. You know, they tell you, if you're thinking about a yellow Volkswagen, you're going to see all the yellow Volkswagens in the world, okay? See, what happens is, every minute you are bombarded, your brain is bombarded with 10 million bits of information. Every minute. That's everything from the ambient temperature in the air to your blood pressure to, your temperature to, your hunger to the, the particles floating out over there to the things you see and hear and taste and, things you're not even consciously aware of. Because the brain does a really good job of filtering. It's a well-documented fact that the above average, and that includes all of us here, of course, but the above average person can keep track of, focus on 7 to 9 bits of information at a time. That's why your phone number is 7 digits. And you say, I can remember more than 7 things at a time. By the way, that's called chunking. We'll get that sort of time. See, I have a great phone number for chunking. See, I have a 7-digit phone number, 92532463030. But pretty much all of us who live out here know 925 is just one number. 3246030. I'm down to 4 things to remember. I got room for 3 more. Or 5 if I'm really lucky. You understand what happens? You're faced with a problem. And you're racking your brain, you're thinking of all of the things that you could possibly do to do this. And you can handle 7 to 9 bits of information. 7 to 9 possibilities. And guess which 7 to 9 get through, by the way? The brain taking care of you says, I'm only going to give you the relevant stuff. I'm only going to give you the stuff that you understand or that you already know, or the stuff that you're used to. So all of the stuff that we think we're thinking is stuff we already have thought 1,000 times. What I want to say is, I'm going to give us all credit. If you knew exactly what was causing your problem, your upset, your unhappiness, your distress, if you knew, you'd fix it in a heartbeat. So if whatever's going on for you is lasting more than 30 seconds, I promise you, your conscious mind does not know. So I want you to open to the possibility that someplace in that brain of yours, someplace someplace in that other 9,999,991 bits of information, there might be an answer. What we've done is we've filtered out everything that we're not willing to look at. You know, Einstein said you can't solve the problem at the level of thinking that created it. So what I'm going to say is that fear keeps us at the level of thinking that created all of our problems. What love does? Love actually lifts us up above all of that so we can see a bigger picture. You know that saying, can't see the forest for the trees? Well, when you're right down in the middle of it, you can't see the whole of it. That's all it means. You're in the middle of the forest and you've got these trees all around, but you can't see the forest. How many of you remember the first shot of Earth taken from space? You know that picture of the planet? Anybody remember that when it came out? That had a huge impact on our world. A huge impact, because for the first time we had a picture of what looked like this tiny little, I can actually see the whole thing, planet. And some people realized, you know what? We're all in this together. We're all sitting on that planet. Down here in the middle of it, it looks like I'm over here and you're over there and they're way across the world. That doesn't matter at all. But you get high enough, you get big enough, and suddenly you see the oneness. You see the joining. You see the commonality. See, we're always talking about oneness here. There's only one presence and one power. Well, in order to see the oneness, you have to get far enough away from the two-ness to be able to see it. You need to get far enough away from the duality, from me and you, to some other viewpoint that says, us. He's just fine. He's just fine. You know, imagine, if you will, for a moment, we got this couple, and they're trying to decide what to have for dinner. You know, he wants pizza, she wants salad. Or he's a vegetarian and she's not. Ah, what are we going to eat? Two-ness. Duality. The world tells us you need to compromise. All right, we'll have pizza tonight, we'll have salad tomorrow night. But you know what happens with compromise? Get this, folks. Every compromise means that both parties lose. Neither party gets what they want. So I'm telling you this morning, compromise is not a good thing. So how do you get a win-win solution? Thank you, Rick. Always want this win-win.
Yes.
Right. How do you get this win-win solution? The only way to do that is to rise above the differences. You want to find the commonality, the joining, where you both want the same thing. Now, win-win doesn't mean you both get exactly what you thought you originally wanted. Win-win means that you find a higher viewpoint, something more inclusive, something you can both actually agree on. So let's say this couple sits down and says, you know, what's really important to me is that we eat dinner together. Or maybe what's really important to me is that we eat at home in peace. Well, suddenly it doesn't really matter what you're eating. It doesn't matter if you eat two different things, because you are happily in love having dinner together at home in peace. That's win-win. Win-win focuses on the higher good, not to the exclusion of the individual good, but focuses on the higher good where both parties have exactly what they want to have. You know, most of the learning in this world is fear-based. You know, we get an education so we can get a better job, so we can, you know, look good, so we can fit in with everybody else, so we can handle the world better. You name all the reasons you can think of for getting a better education. Most of them are fear-based. Most learning, or I'll say most teaching, is done under threat of punishment, under judgment, under grades, under evaluation. So in short, most learning, teaching in this world is done in reference to externals. You're looking at what's outside, and that's the measure of how well you've done, how well you fit in. Real learning is about learning what's inside. So we've learned, unfortunately, in this world to be externally referring instead of internally referring. Now, because the world is constantly changing and constantly growing and constantly morphing into new things, you're never going to learn enough about this world to stay ahead of the curve. So what we need is a little thing called behavioral flexibility. Now, Maxwell Maltz was a guy who wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics way back in the 70s or 80s or something like that. Some of you may have heard of him, some of us have been around that long. But in this book, Psycho-Cybernetics, what he did is he brought his experience as an engineer for the telephone company, by the way. And what he found out as an engineer is he found out that the piece of machinery that had the most flexibility controlled the entire system. For good or for bad, by the way. Same thing is true, and that's what his book is all about, Psycho-Cybernetics. It's saying that the individual with the greatest flexibility is in total control. You guys all know this from your own experience. Anybody ever been shopping? Grocery store? You notice, by the way, you notice that they have all of the candy stuff right there at the checkout counter. Now, see, when he gets a little older, he's going to know. He's going to remember, I heard Robert once. I won't do this. But have you ever noticed how a small child, with not a lot of education or skills or, thought about it, can absolutely totally manipulate a much bigger, stronger, wiser, more educated adult? So you get up to that checkout line, and this little kid says, Mommy, I want a candy bar. She says, no, dear, we're going to have dinner when we get home. Done, right? The kid's saying, that didn't work. Mommy, I want a candy bar. No, shh. Come on, don't disturb the people in line. That didn't work. You got the picture? Until what happens, the kid grabs a whole handful of candy bars and she says, no, just one. See, kids have us beat. For us, all of our behavioral flexibility has been trained out of us or beaten out of us. We know very well now how to get along, how to fit in the world, how to be a good person, how to not rock the boat. See, we're back to the level of thinking that created it. See, external referral is what caused all of our problems in the first place. It took us away from ourselves, away from the truth of ourselves. So more external referral, meaning checking up, how are we doing, guys, is not going to solve the problem. Now, I need to make a distinction here. Internal referring is not selfishness or self-centeredness or egocentricity. Internal referring is paying attention to our responses to our creation. So that if I don't like my responses, if they're not healthy, happy, loving responses, I can choose to change them. So it's not about sublimating my needs for the greater good. It's actually about expanding the way I see my needs, so that I see when the needs of the greater good are met, my needs are met as well. I believe that the only truly valuable, useful learning is when we learn about ourselves. And by the way, since we're all unlimited, that means this is a life of unlimited learning. That's not a bad thing. And since also we are created infinite in creativity and in love, that means that learning about that creativity and love should be an absolutely joy-filled, exciting experience in our lives. And when we are truly learning about ourselves, then we will always be loving the world. Thank you.